So, what drives an awakened person when there's no drive? Um, why do I get out of bed in the morning when there's no reason? How do I have a life that's fulfilling when there's no meaning in anything? I get asked these questions a lot. And I got asked one recently. And I used to get on here and answer all these questions, but I'm starting to notice that that doesn't do anything because it's the mind that's asking the questions. The mind wants an answer to a question that has nothing to do with it. It's like if my 5-year-old asked me the exact route that I drive to work and why I take that route and when do I stop and when do I go and stop lights and stop signs and how all that stuff works. Why would I give her the specifics? She doesn't need to know and it has nothing to do with her at all. But it's just how the mind works. It wants to know everything, thinking that somehow there's some kind of safety or security in the answers, but there is not. I assure you, anything I get on here and say or questions I answer are not going to make you feel better in the end or give you the security or cure that underlying restless feeling. They won't. They just won't. Now, what happens is when your brain shuts up or you just disidentify, your thoughts happen, but you don't even care, you're not even looking at them or thinking at all. You just live in a flow state. You just kind of cruise around. You do whatever you want. Whatever happens, happens. And it's just a completely different way to live. But for me to try to explain what it's like and why, it's just like it doesn't matter. The point in sharing these is well, who knows what the point is, but some people relate because they're going through their own process, and then other people that are curious and maybe want to awaken, that's what you look at. Me answering it or giving you an answer isn't going to do anything. Look at the want. Who is the want happening to? Who is the one that wants? Trace it back. Who is the one that wants an answer? What is it that is asking the question? Don't look for the answer to the question. Look for the asker of the question. Is it you? Okay, then what is you? Just backwards extrapolate this stuff. Deconstruct. Deconstruct it. Like if somebody handed you an alien spaceship that's above your pay grade and you didn't know how it worked, the best thing to do, well, to start out doing, is slowly take things apart and just, deconstruct it and see if once you get things into pieces or separated, if you can see how they work together. And then when you see how they work together, you gain the knowledge of the whole system. So it's kind of what every spiritual practice is doing. It's deconstructing the self in a way that you start to see the individual pieces and how they all work together. And then eventually you can just step out of the whole thing. I don't know if that made any sense. But living from spontaneity and not forethought, you're just always in flow because you don't want or need or have an idea of how something's going to go. So, for example, I'm a parent. I get these little moments or life happenings all the time because kids are crazy. So my 5-year-old, by the way, I don't share these to brag. I'm not the greatest parent. I'm sure there's way better ones and way worse ones. I don't care. I don't really gauge myself that way. But I have great examples because I have kids. So last night, getting ready for bed, I got one down. I got 2 to go, the 2 older ones. So I, told them to clean up. My daughter gets super mad. She tells me she's not going to clean up and just starts yelling at me. So I tell her, okay, well, if you don't clean up, we're not going to read or have any bedtime routine. and you are going to clean up. And then when you're done, we're going to skip all the fun stuff and you're just going to go straight to bed. To which that made her more mad. Then she starts yelling at me because she's very smart for a 5-year-old. And she is just yelling, Dad, I have to learn how to read. We can't skip reading. And she almost had a mental, like just a emotional breakdown right there. And in that moment, I raised my finger like I was going to say something. But then clarity hit me. And before anything came out, I used what was happening as an example for her, and it worked. And I didn't think this ahead of time. I don't gauge, like, okay, if she yells at me or she has an attitude, how am I going to treat her? What am I going to do? Like, it's very intuitive. It's an intuitive process. It's how I live my whole life, so it's made parenting a lot easier. So I get up close to her in her face, and I point in her head and I say, hey, this is important. You're learning how to read? That's in here. You have a good one. You have a good mind. I want you to learn. I want you to expand your mind. Then I said, the way you're yelling at me and treating me right now, that's in here. And I pointed at her heart. And I said, this is more important. And it's stronger. And everything flows out of this. So the way you're treating me has to be changed so that I can help you learn how to read, which is important, but not as important as the way you're treating me right now. She got it. I saw it. I saw it click in her mind. And I asked her, do you understand what I'm saying? To which she nodded. And her tears slowed down. Because it was a very intense moment until I calmed her down. And then she got up and cleaned up and was completely obedient. Cleaned up, and then we read, and then we did our normal bedtime routine. None of that was planned. So now, if I used that as an example of what to do in the future, it wouldn't work. Because that was a completely unplanned, spontaneous moment where whatever was leading me, it just led me. There was a connection I saw underneath her defiance and her attitude, and I just made a connection point, which made sense to her, and it calmed everything down. The thing is, when people see things like this, they start to record them in their mind. And then they think, okay, that worked. And then something else happens, it didn't work. And you decide this doesn't work, this does work. And then, it becomes this whole catalog of what works and what doesn't work. And then we can share. This worked for me, this didn't work for me. But in every single situation, in every moment of your life, you can apply concepts. But even if they work 80, 90% of the time, they're not going to be the perfect thing in that moment because the moment calls for whatever it calls for. And if your mind's not getting in the way, you just do what needs to be done, you say what needs to be said, and it's just all in flow. Now, I'm never going to say the same thing to her again, probably. And I'm not even going to think about it again. I only thought about it to use it as an example in this video. But if I use that example as how people treat awakening, I would be questioned over and over, like why she responded, how it worked, why do you think it calmed her down, what do you think you said or did that was correct, and what were the techniques to get there, and all this stuff, and it's all absolutely unnecessary. I just felt and knew and saw in the moment what needed to be done. And what said was not planned. It was just spontaneous. It's such an easier way to live. But you really got to die to yourself. Because could you imagine if she got an attitude with me and then I got mad that she was getting an attitude with me and then I got yelled at her? That stuff doesn't work. When there's a personal self there to be offended, this stuff doesn't work. You have to die to yourself so you cannot feel So like nothing in you is triggered or felt, because in that moment she's being extremely unreasonable and not, you know, not compliant. So I can treat the outside attitude and what she's saying and say, hey, you can't talk to me like that. I'm your dad. Or I can look underneath. What are her fears? What are her desires? What is she feeling? What does she need? It has nothing to do with me. I'm just the closest adult and a safe person for her to yell at. It's not personal. Awakening's the same way. It's not personal. So a lot of times the person asks me a question and they want me, the person, to give them, the person, an answer. But then if I play that game, we're just ego on ego. Ego here, ego there. Ego question, ego answer. You don't need my concepts or my answers. You just need to look into and feel your own direct experience at every second, every moment. Not like I'm going to feel it now and then I'm going to awaken and then my life's going to be great. No, it continues forever. Every single moment is a new felt direct experience. That's why you are the only truth that you know. I am the only truth that I know. There are no other truths out there. There is yours, your experience. That's why I like to always say that what I'm saying on here is not true. It might not be true for you. And that's fine. I don't care. I'm trying to point you back to your experience because mine is maybe fun to listen to, but it's not yours. Now, the interesting part of this whole thing is when you do look into the person and the self, there is a separate self at first. And you just kind of work on it and you kind of flow with it and you deconstruct it and you do trauma work, shadow work, all that stuff. And then it breaks down and then the more you see through it, the less there is. And then the less there is, the more you live in this spontaneous way. But it's not like it's going to happen overnight. Sometimes it's a slow process, and that's fine. It started with me before I had an ego death. I slowly got worse until I just really separated from my thoughts. But there were small moments here and there where somebody would say something or do something, and I noticed that it didn't even affect me anymore. And there were just little moments like that where I thought, wow, what's happening here? And it was me separating from myself. It was... It's hard to explain. The self just slowly diminishes. Or maybe just blows up all at once. It just depends on who you're talking to. Man. It's just so easy. Just imagine what life is like not being offended, ever. When there's really no feeling or thought or offense, like, or anything to look at in you because it really isn't anything left, then all there is left to do is just experience. All there is just experience. I'm not driven by anything, so the question was like, what drives me if I don't have goals? Nothing. There isn't a drive. It's like if I die tomorrow or in 100 years, it's the same to me. I don't think about it. It doesn't bother me. You know, I don't know. It's a weird one to think about. But again, my experience doesn't matter. If you're not experiencing it, then that has nothing to do with you. The one questioning, that's what to look at. Why does it matter? Who does it matter to? Go that direction. And just whittle your way down to what is it asking the questions? Who is it asking the questions? Is there someone there? And I get that in the relative sense, that doesn't make sense. Because in the relative, I'm here, you're there, and we're two separate people. But in the absolute, that's just a concept and an idea, and it actually isn't true. But it has to be realized. It can't be taught or learned. The more you learn about this stuff, probably the worse off you are. So after I had a significant shift, what people call an awakening, I just stopped reading. I will glance through a page or two of a book here and there sometimes now, but it's just, I don't need it. I don't want it. I don't even want to be influenced by other people's ideas. I don't watch YouTube anymore. It's hard to get through a movie or anything, actually. Music is the only thing that currently still moves me in a way that I enjoy. But that's about it. Everything else is just done because it needs to be done. And I do it. Like going to work. I don't like or not like my work. I don't feel like I'm working or not working. I just go and my body does what it does, and then I go home. I do have a small sense of not even responsibility, but just knowing that my kids are depending on the money I make. So it's, for them it's important. But yeah, it doesn't mean anything. I don't care about it. Yeah, there's just a lot of empty space in my mind these days. Everything I talk about are not added concepts. They all got deleted or subtracted or seen through. So anytime there's a thought now that I am aware of or look into or am paying attention to, it's just see-through. It's like mist, like fog. Fog is real when you're standing at a distance and you can see it, but then when you get up close, it disappears. Thoughts and feelings and your life purpose are all the same way. They're fog. They look real from a distance, and then you get right in the middle of it and you can't see it. It disappears. And that's just kind of the new place that you live from. You don't need answers because any answer is just going to be more mist. Any concept is just, it's only as real as any other concept or answer, which there's no substance. Yeah, in a way it's not hard, but like it feels like it's pointless or getting harder to share videos about this because there is nothing to talk about because it quite literally is nothing. I think what I'll probably end with is just pointing people back to their own experience over and over, because the more I talk about it, the more it is just useless. I met someone in the park today. I was walking by and this girl had this whole contraption set up. It was this pole and then she had a tripod, and I stopped and I'm like, all right, you're doing something for the gram. What is it? This looks interesting. And she's a pole fitness, whatever, influencer, poster. She makes money doing it. And I just thought, man, that's so cool. I told her a little bit about, like, I post on YouTube, but I'm not, like, it's not a job. And then she went straight into, like, how often do you post? Do you do this? Do you do that? You should do this. And like, she had all these strategies, and it was like, oh my gosh. Okay, slow down. I don't care. But it's so real for her. That's the fog. It's so real, and she's like figured out how to like manipulate it and use it. And I just don't really care that much. I walked away thinking, wow, I don't want to do any of that. I don't want to post more. I don't want to get on TikTok. All the stuff she talked about just kind of made me laugh. But you can see it. You can see through it. And it's fine. And people are living in it. And I don't want to mess that up or like tell them none of it's real, because that's not very nice either. Everybody's just doing what they do. I think people that suffer or don't have a good go at life or are really having a hard time really are the ones that find this stuff quicker because they just want peace or some relief from their agony. I mean, that's what started me on the path. That's what led me to where I'm at. All right, I'm just rambling. Thanks for watching. I'm going to stop there.